So architects in general, half the time, it could be from engineers or it could just be the way that they're portrayed in shows. Either they're people who are designing these projects that are just light years ahead of where most people are. And when they get done, they're expensive. They took too long to build, designed it for themselves. The reality is there are very few good architects that design that way. Good architects don't design projects for themselves. They are designing it for their clients, the ones who are paying the money by hiring us to do the projects. And every project can be sliced and diced so many different ways, the way they're organized. It relate contractually. We could have a relationship where we are direct to the client and we hold all the consultants behind us. That's a traditional architectural contract with clients. And that's usually called design, bid, build. In that, you go out and you select a general contractor who then bids out, and you have multiple general contractors that they bid out drawings. There's good things about it, and there's bad things about it. That tends to be the way things were done in my lifetime, more East Coast, Central states. West Coast tended to go more design assist, and in some cases, design build. Those sound different, but they are different. To do any of those two options, you have to have a lot of trust in everyone that you're working with. I felt like the design bid build was more about a process protecting yourself from people you don't trust, where you bid it out to these firms. They're looking at the drawings. People are looking at the drawings, are trying to find possible errors in it, where they can say, well, that wasn't in the drawings. You hired us, but that wasn't in the drawings. That's a change, or the criteria that you gave me wasn't accurate to what you have. And you always left this kind of in limbo. So going to something like design build, the client would go direct to the general contractor. The general contractor had the agreement, and the general contractor would bring in the design consultants under them. So in my case, in a design build project, I did not have a direct contract with the client. I'm not protecting the client from contractors who might have malicious ideas of how to treat them. Being an architect, though, we always wanted to make sure the client was in the loop and protected, and we would be telling the general contractor, you need to let them know this stuff, So in those cases, though, I always said, if you can't trust, you don't have any faith in general contractors or design teams or whatever, then you want to have a contract with one group and let them, that group, the architect in this case, protect you. But otherwise, there's better ways to do it. You might have a better schedule. You may have a better cost. As long as you provide them correct information about what your desire is for schedule and cost, both design build and design assist will help immensely in reducing the chances for unexpected costs to show up or delays in the project, in my mind. Now, going into a project and you start a project, as I mentioned when I said we went back to New York to go meet with a client, we did meet with a client, tried to understand what they did as a company, see their space, to understand where they were, what they were coming from, and tried to understand how they were organized. Who are the people who are going to be calling the shots? Is it one person? Is it a group of people? Are there multiple groups? There could be more than just a client. It could be somebody who's, maybe they're the ones footing the bill to the project or partly providing monies for the project. So you need to understand who they were. Also, we had to see the site. Without any knowledge, that's tough to do. So our next step was to begin design after we had a contract in place. We went back, and what we did was a visioning session. And a visioning session to me is the very, very beginning of a true project. In that, the client brings the people who are going to make decisions on the project. Usually they don't bring everybody. If they brought everybody, you will hear too many comments and you don't know who to listen to. And we always tell them, only people that you want to have a say in this project, not just a say, but a say in this project, because everything you're providing us is criteria that we're going to use to come up with our design.
Right. Yeah.
We also needed to know how their approval process was going to take place. Do we, are we going to go traditional? Are we going to go through a schematic design development, construction drawing phases, and we approve along the way, or is some other means? Then we start talking about the project itself and this visioning. And it usually is talking about two different types of things. Some of it is very objective, like you got 10 widgets, versus something that is very subjective, like I like great design. You'll hear people say, I don't know what I like, but I know I like that. Okay.
Right.
So we have to then, as architects, try to pull this out of everyone, because words are really hard. That you say something means something completely different to me. And most of the people I'm dealing with are not trained as an architect to communicate in architectural words. So let's talk about the objective elements. The objective elements are, of course, budget. How much are you wanting to spend on this project? And it's not like, I really want to spend $10 million, but I want to tell them we're going to spend $5 million, because I know they're going to come back and it's going to be 10 at the end. No. Again, good design is going to meet the criteria you tell us. So tell us what you want it to be. Tell us if we aren't at that level, what happens to the project. We need to understand that, because we have means and mechanisms to put some heat on people, because you're going out to contractors and subs and so forth and say, look, I don't think you're going to have a chance to even be in this if you aren't in this range for this element or something. But you tell us what it is. The schedule is important. Again, what are the drivers to that? Do you have a lease that's expiring? You have to be out of the space and you need to be up and running in this space. I need 3 months to set up the IT requirements within the building to make sure it's tested and ready to go. Okay, so we now have a schedule. And then we need to know what they usually call as the program. What kind of spaces do you need? Roughly how much square footage are they? What are the relationships of those spaces to each other? In a simple project, if it's an office building, you've got workstations, you have conference rooms, you have private offices, you have a break room, you have a reception area, you have storage rooms. Simple offices, you kind of know how things normally run, but sometimes you need to understand what are adjacencies and understand that. And only from a volume standpoint, we need 80 workstations. We need 10 private offices, those kinds of things. That is the information on the objective side, predominantly. Then you've got the subjective side, and that's where it gets a little bit different from the norm, because you need to get into things like, what is the culture of the client that you're working with? Who are your competitors? What makes your company better than them? So you're almost like an advertising agency.
Because you're helping them with their brand.
Or it's their brand. Oh, and their brand could be colors too, or images. Yeah. So you're trying to get all that information out of them. Yeah. You're trying to understand their likes, their dislikes, and prejudice. And prejudice is such a big word. I think of prejudice is you're talking about race, color, whatever it is. Yeah. It is anything where you have a reaction while you still don't know anything about the element that you're discussing. So trying to get those things out. And usually what we would do, they would say, what do you want the space to look like? And I said, okay, let's walk around in your existing space and you point out things you like and you dislike in your space, and all of a sudden most of the time it's the things they don't like. You know, there's a few things. Well, I like this. And you're like, well, what do you like about that? And they're like, I don't know. It just feels right. Is it color? Is it the shape? Is it the form itself? Is it the functionality? So you're going through this process to pull all that information out of the client.